Hey there everyone, I'm Luke and today we're diving down the Tube of Toons to review the latest Disney live action remake, Cruella. So as some of you may know on this channel, I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with these live action Disney remakes. You know, I love the original animated version so much, and I do question, why do they need to remake them in live action? You know, do people feel that the animated versions are just simply for kids and they have to legitimize them by making them in live action for adults? I mean, we are all about animation and cartoons here at Tube of Toons, but I have got to say that this is one that I had been really excited for quite a long time. The original 101 Dalmatians, the animated film from 1961, is probably one of my favourite Disney movies, and it has a very special place in my heart. I watched it a lot growing up. It's my mum and dad's favourite animated movie. And yeah, I just have a strong love for anything to do with that film and just the franchise as a whole. Now, this film was first announced back in 2013, and it was definitely something that had intrigued me back then, but of course it was being announced among a slew of live action Disney remakes that were being announced at the time. That was a year before Maleficent had even come out. But looking back, especially at the earlier slate of Disney's live action remakes, you know, it felt the most deserving of a story to be told compared to a lot of the other remakes, because it wasn't a remake, it was a reimagining from the point of view of Maleficent, and it's shown her that she wasn't quite as wicked as you thought she was. I do think Cruella de Vil is probably one of Disney's greatest villains. She's certainly my favourite Disney villain. You could certainly make the argument that she is the most evil of all the villains, so the idea of doing a Maleficent style deep dive into the character of Cruella very much interested me, especially when in 2016 they announced that Emma Stone would be playing her. I am a huge fan of Emma Stone. From everything she's done, from Easy A to Spider-Man to La La Land, I love her as an actress, and I might have had a tiny crush on her when I was younger. Okay, maybe I still do. So basically what I'm trying to say is that I was on board for this film from day one, and of course it was meant to come out last year and it got pushed back due to the pandemic, and it was one of those films that over the last year we hadn't really heard that much hype over this film. As you can imagine, I don't think Disney was sure how and when they were going to release it, but the fact that they didn't just throw it on streaming like they did with some other movies last year, shown that I think they felt like it had potential. So it was very exciting for me when they announced it was coming out this May, after cinemas would be reopening in the UK, and you'd also get the chance to watch it on Disney Plus. You know, I think maybe people were expecting this to be one of Disney's smaller releases of the year, but make no mistake, this was a huge big budget movie, and while there wasn't much hype going into it, I actually think this may have been one of my most anticipated movies of the year, and I think that was rightly so, because what Disney has delivered is a behemoth of a movie. Just so you all know, this is a completely no spoiler review. Do not worry, I'm not going to be spoiling anything. So if you haven't seen the film yet, if you're unsure whether this is something you want to check out, whether you want to venture out to the cinemas to see it, or even check it out on Premier Access on Disney Plus, this will be the video for you to help you decide whether or not you want to watch it. And before we get started, I just want to remind you to hit that like button while you're at it. If you haven't already done so yet, why don't you hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell to be notified the next time we dive down the Tube of Toons. So what is this film? Well, I'm just going to give you a brief summary of the events that set up the film, but don't worry, I'm not going to go into too many details. And so we do meet Cruella, or should I say Estella, as a young child, and she's shown to be quite different from everyone else, but with a love for fashion and the dream of growing up to become a fashion designer. But she's also shown to have a bit of a cruel side, which her mother lovingly dubbed Cruella, and forbids Estella from letting Cruella come out to play. And well, when tragedy strikes, Estella finds herself with nowhere to go, and so she goes to Regent's Park, London, which is where she meets Horace and Jasper, two young thieves that take her in and let her be part of their family, and they grow up to become a family of thieves. Skipping ahead, Estella finds herself with a job at the famous London department store Liberty. At least I think it's famous. I personally have never heard of it, but I looked it up, it is real, where she catches the eye of the haute couture fashion designer, the Baroness. And when she gets the opportunity of a lifetime to go and work for her, but there she uncovers a dark secret about her past, leading her on her quest to upstage and get revenge as she unleashes her inner Cruella. Now, was that vague enough? Did I manage to keep all the twists and turns a secret? I mean, I hope so. Look, this film is a very long film and a lot happens in it. and I just can't talk about a lot of those things without spoiling and ruining the film for you. So I've tried to keep it vague, but I feel like that definitely teases you as what to expect from the film and hopefully entices you to watch it. So what are my initial thoughts of this movie? Well, I absolutely love this movie. In fact, I cannot wait to go and see it again. Now, I personally saw it at the cinema on like the day it came out on my own, but I cannot wait to go back. I want to drag all my different friends to go and see it. I just think the film was just that good and that enjoyable. It kept my attention like the entire time. I mean, when you enjoy a film that much, like you're racing to go back, I think that's always definitely a good sign. Of course, I did mention going in that I was very excited about this movie. I was probably like the exact target audience and so I am probably going in with a little bit of a biased opinion, but on the other hand, the fact that I went in with such high expectations means that I could have left feeling so disappointed had it not met them. And I would like to say I don't love every single Disney live action remake. I just love like the look and the feel of the movie, the setting, the characters, the actors, the performances. Love the way they twisted and reimagined and adapted the original story and the characters and put them into this new, very new feeling film. I just loved it, and I personally cannot recommend this film enough. I absolutely enjoyed it so much. So where shall I start? Well, let's start with the cast, particularly focusing on the two Emmas. Well, they did such a phenomenal job in this movie. I mean, I've already said to you that I'm a big fan of Emma Stone, but she is a phenomenal actress, and you can really see that here. You really do feel for Estella in this movie, which is not an easy task, I might add. This is a villain, this is a character that we are all familiar with and we all just love to hate. How can you feel and empathise with a character that wanted to kill 99 puppies? And while I'm not going to touch on whether the film delves into that particular aspect of the character, the fact is you go into this film with a preconceived notion of who the character is, and the fact that you were able to feel anything for her other than just pure hatred goes to show the remarkable job that the actress and the filmmakers did in crafting this portrayal of the character. Well, that's Estella. What about when she becomes Cruella? Well, this is when Emma Stone just gets to let loose on screen and just hams it up and has a great time. You can really feel her channeling the cartoon character. It is that version of the character truly brought to life in the mannerisms, the way she talks, the way she acts and holds herself. Now, in the animated film, Cruella is played or voiced by Betty Lou Gerson, but that portrayal was very much based on the actress Tallulah Bankhead, and I've seen in interviews that Emma has talked about both watching the original animated film as well as just watching a lot of Tallulah Bankhead movies and trying to mimic that actress's like on-screen presence, and well, she definitely nailed it here. She felt like a living, breathing version of that cartoon Cruella from the original 1961 movie. And then the other Emma in this movie, Emma Thompson, oh, she is just great. She plays the Baroness, who is the villain of the film, the one person who is even more bad and cruel than Cruella herself. And oh, you hate this character. You love to hate this character. Her presence on screen is absolutely brilliant. She is Miranda Priestley from The Devil Wears Prada times 10 and even more vicious. This is a truly evil woman, and Emma Thompson's performance is truly incredible. And when the two Emmas are on screen together, you can just feel the electricity in the room. They really know how to play off one another. Oh, it's just a sight to behold. The look and feel of this movie was just astounding. It has such a great aesthetic. It's set in 1970s London, and it has this great grunge sort of aesthetic to it. You know, you have this lovely contrast of these high-end, ornate, fancy looking buildings juxtaposed with these underground punk aesthetic that seems to be where Cruella and Horace and Jasper surround themselves with. And you see a great fusion and marrying of those two worlds in what Estella and Cruella try and interject into the 70s fashion world. And obviously this is a movie about fashion, and all the fashion in this film is incredible. The costume designing and like just the art design in general on this film should definitely be getting all the praise that it deserves. This film features two warring fashion designers that have their distinct, unique styles that the costume designer on the film had to create herself. You know, you have two very distinct looking lines, not to mention any previous collections that are seen in the film, or just the costumes that the characters wear in a day-to-day life, which, because they are fashionistas, they're also very fashionable and intricate, and there's a lot to them. It isn't just these big dresses that the film centres its plot around. Anytime you see one of these two characters on the screen, they are wearing something that very much screams who the character is. Very distinct from anything else you'd seen them in previous parts of the film. So much work has gone into the costumes on this film. I don't really understand much about fashion and costuming myself, but even I can say, wow, what they did was fantastic. And the costume designer Jenny Beavan talks about when designing costumes for the Baroness, she looked at the more traditional fashion that was actually seen during the 70s. She took inspiration from Vogue magazine, from Dior and Balenciaga, whereas when crafting Cruella's line of clothing, she took more influence from the punk scene and thought, how can she interject that into the fashion world and create this sort of fusion? And so, particularly a lot of Cruella's looks feel very unique and feel almost modern, whilst at the same time channeling the 70s fashion world and the 70s punk scene. And while we are talking about the setting and the aesthetics, I've got to mention the soundtrack of this film because it is truly incredible. So many great 70s songs are stuffed into this film. I've heard some people say maybe it's a little overbearing, but you know what? None of them were ever distracting to me. The action at least all felt well timed to the music. It did feel cohesive. I can understand why some people might find it slightly annoying. And it is also a very stylistic film. There are a lot of montages that showcase newspaper headlines and what's going on within the world of the film in a very interesting way. It is very stylistic and very fun to watch. So what will be the future of the franchise? Well, I'm not entirely sure, but I can tell you this, I'm going to be very excited for it. The film does sort of set up, or at the very much leave room for, a potential sequel, which feels like it's going to be a more close adaptation of the original 101 story. But I will say, if they do eventually make that 101 adaptation, the follow-up to this movie, I'm very intrigued. I mean, these are very, very different versions of these characters, some of whom bear little resemblance to their original portrayals, whether it's the 1961 movie, the 1996 live-action film, or even the original 1956 book, that I don't see how they could adapt the original 101 story. If they do, it's certainly going to be a very, very different version of it, which I'm all here for. I'm very excited to see. This is, without a doubt, the way Disney should be adapting their legacy franchises. Don't just simply make a retread of the film we've already seen. Really delve into it and see what interesting aspects of the characters you have and what you can explore, and create these very new and original feeling films, because even though this isn't technically an original film, it feels so new and refreshing. I feel like it's such an interesting take on the characters, and I'd definitely like to see more what they can do in this world. I'd argue it's maybe going to be an even bigger challenge for them to now make an adaptation of 101 with these versions of the character. As you know, I love this movie and I'm very excited to see what they do with it in the future. So just wrapping things up, my final thoughts on the film. Do I think it's worth watching? As you can imagine, I think so. I absolutely love this film. I definitely think it's worth a watch. If it is in cinemas or theatres near you, I think it's definitely worth checking out. If it is safe to do so and you feel comfortable doing so wherever you are located. I personally do feel safe. I've had both injections of my vaccine. Also, I have previously had COVID last September, and so I do feel safe to go out and watch it in a cinema that practices social distancing. But of course, if you are not comfortable with that, well, Disney have given you the option to purchase it in Premier Access on Disney Plus, which I would also argue is still a really great deal. It's £20 or $30 and you get to watch it as many times as you want, as long as you are still subscribing to Disney Plus. Now, I personally don't think that's a bad deal at all, especially because if there's multiple people that want to watch the film, it could actually end up being cheaper than watching it at the cinema. I did mention earlier I want to watch this film again, and of course multiple trips to the cinema probably is going to end up making it dearer than if I did just buy it on Premier Access. But I love this film so much that I'm happy to do that. I personally love the big screen experience that really you can only truly get at the cinema. I think it's the best way to watch the film, and I think there are some stunning visuals that you will enjoy to see. So yeah, I definitely think it is worth a watch. Alright everyone, that's pretty much going to be it. I will be back with a spoiler review. There's a few things I really do want to talk about. Like I said, this film is very long and there's lots of twists and turns, and so I couldn't really discuss any of those things here. So I definitely want to be back to discuss them and maybe talk about where I think they might go forward with this franchise in the future. I'll probably do that in a few weeks. We'll gauge how well the film has done with audiences and whether or not it is likely Disney will move forward with this franchise. Fingers crossed. Now, I do also have another Cruella related video coming soon, and that is going to be a page to screen, how they adapted the original 101 Dalmatians book into the animated movie. And that's going to be very exciting. I've really enjoyed reading this book and I've been enjoying putting this video together. I think it's going to be a good one, so stay tuned for that. And I'm also going to be doing a trailer breakdown for the upcoming Disney Pixar film Luca, because that comes out in a few weeks time and it's coming out for free on Disney Plus, so I'm very excited for that one. So there's a lot to look forward to in the future, so if you haven't already done so, why don't you hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell to be notified when we dive down the Tube of Tunes and make those videos. Oh, and give us a like. Alright everyone, thanks for watching. Cheers. Thanks for watching Tube of Tunes. If you want more from the channel, hit subscribe. If you want to keep up to date with what's going on, follow us on our socials. Hope you liked it. Cheers.